I remember where I was when the Twin Towers were hit. I was on my way to Votech, and that was when I realized that I wanted to join the Army. And so in August of 2003, I joined the Army. I went through basic in Fort Sill, Oklahoma. I went through AIT in Fort Bliss, Texas, and I went to Airborne School in Fort Benning, Georgia. Shortly after I got to my unit in Fort Stewart, they switched my MOS from a 14 Sierra to a 19 Delta. And that may not mean much to you guys, but as a 14 Sierra, with each MOS, there's a life expectancy on the battlefield. And as a 14 Sierra, it was an adventure crew member. I was shooting planes out of the sky, and my life expectancy was like days. And so the MOS they switched me to was a 19 Delta, which was a Cav Scout, was like 2 seconds. So it was literally on the front lines. And so as soon as I got to my unit, they didn't waste no time in me learning my new job. And shortly after that, I deployed to Iraq. I was in Balad, Iraq, about 20 clicks north of Baghdad. I was right in the middle of the Sunni triangle, right in the middle of where the Sunni, the Shiites, and the Crits were, all battling, as well as us being over there as well. And so I was stationed at Camp Anaconda, and I was attached with the 101st Airborne Division. I worked with military intelligence, special forces, gathering information on high-value targets, a bunch of raids, QRF, which is a Quick Reaction Force team, as well as convoy support and cache searches. The whole time that I was there, I'd lost probably roughly 13 of my battle buddies. I remember the very first time that we got hit with an IED, which is an improvised explosive device. All I remember is getting butt stroked in the head and brought back kind of to when the IED blast went off. I kind of went into that flight mode and just started driving and drove until, like I said, I kind of got hit, woke up, and realized I'd left my guys behind. 1 week out of every month, like I said, I pulled a QRF, which was, again, a quick reaction force team where if somebody was to get hit with an IED, RPG, something was to happen where they were inoperable, as in they were sitting there as sitting ducks. We had to go in and pull 360 security for them as they got their vehicle up, or we got everybody out of there. And we actually had to do that at a different forward observing base, a different FOB other than where we were stationed. And at this FOB, it was very small. On Camp Anaconda, it was so big, you could literally get a ticket on post for speeding over in Iraq. So if that kind of gives you an idea of how big it was, compared to FOB Palawada, that was, again, a forward observing base of maybe 400 people. And so we always loved, it was a love-hate relationship with that week because, you're 8 on, 4 off, 8 on, 4 off, 12 off, 8 on, 4 off, as you're over there going through missions. But the week that you're doing QRF, it's either you go, or you do get a lot of time off. So you're just sitting there on call, and you do nothing else. So again, sometimes I get 13, 14 hours off, and then sometimes it would be 24 to 36 hours straight. But I just got off a 12-hour tower guard. I'd taken a shower, and I was heading back to my CHU, or our rooms. And Corporal Chambers came to me and said, "Hey man, I'm not feeling too good. Is there any way that you can go back, to Camp Anaconda with Captain to do debriefing?" So our friend had passed away the day before. I got hit with a IED. The truck flipped upside down and landed on the gunner's neck, and he suffocated and died. And so we had to go back and do debriefing on that with this X-ray. And so I said, sure. I have no problem with that. I left some stuff back in my room anyway. And so we headed out. And the difference with this mission than most all the other missions that I was on was volunteering for the spot put me in the lead vehicle. And normally I was the rear vehicle driver. At the time, it was a classified weapon that was on top of the vehicle, classified unit. And anyway, I drove that rear vehicle, and I was trained on that weapon. Corporal Chambers was the lead vehicle driver, and so that's a pretty heavy job to have, as everybody behind you is following suit with you, so you feel like you have all of those guys, on your shoulder as they're following your lead. So we head back to Camp Anaconda. We drop off our captain. He does what he needs to do. I grab a couple of my things. We start heading back. And as I said, it wasn't too far away. The area of operation wasn't but 10, 15 minutes away. And as we were going through Zulu 10, which was a roundabout checkpoint, Ace X-ray called upon the radio and asked us to go check out Tango 10, which was west of our operation, or of our area of operation. And our friend had passed away on that same road the day before, from Zulu 10 to Tango 10. And as I told you, the Sunni Shiites and the Crits that were there, they did not talk with each other. They did not, figure out what was working for the others. So, of course, if you're driving down this road, you're going to hit with RPGs. You drive down this road, you're going to hit with IED. You drive down this road, it's going to be small arms fire. And from Zulu 10 to Tango 10 was IED Alley, or we called it Death Valley. We'd gotten hit 258 times that whole year that we were there with IEDs. Again, usually an IED blows a hole about 4 foot wide, 3 foot deep, and a bunch of shrapnel. And it could tear up a Humvee, even an armored Humvee, pretty quickly. And so we circled around Zulu 10 and went back around as we started heading west to Tango 10. And it was right about dark 30. I'd just gotten there right when the Blue Force tracker was coming about. It's basically like Google, like you guys have now, where it would just tell you where all the military vehicles are at. That was just coming in right about that time, so the whole friendly fire, right? The rules of engagement when I was there was you shoot to kill, there was no warning shots. So again, dark 30, somebody's coming at you on the road, you can't really see on the computer if it's, friendly or foe, so it's kind of really a hard time to be out. But as we started heading west, we came upon the hole that my friend was, or passed away the day before. And I'll try to tell this part of the story the best I can. It all just happened so fast, and I can remember it all. It's just kind of hard to try to explain it all. But as we came upon it, we realized it was filled in with dirt again. And usually when an IED goes off, the military will fill in that hole with tar concrete or something hard surfaced so that or they'll fill it up, it'll be completely empty. That way, if you're driving past it the next day, you know that it's been taken care of. It's filled in with dirt again, and obviously you know that sometimes they've planted an IED on that side of the road, or they've filled that hole, and they've planted it on the other side of the road. See, over in Iraq, you drive down the middle of both lanes. So, of course, when you're driving through, everybody else gets off of the road. And so, of course, you veer one way or the other. We were always on the defensive side. There were a bunch of cowards over there. And so you're constantly always looking, for what's next. And again, as we came up on it, I realized it was filled in with dirt. My team chief told me to start veering left, like I said, which, again, they could have planted one there as well. The thing is that we were already so close that there was no slamming on the brakes and, and not going through it. And so I started veering left, and the last thing that went through my mind was I had 3 of my friends commit suicide. 2 of them succeeded over in Iraq, being lead vehicle drivers. They had people die on their watch. They were driving, they got hit, somebody died. They felt responsible for it, survivor's guilt, and they killed themselves. And so, again, 2 of them made it. The 3rd guy, he walked around, Balad, with a road guard vest on, no shoelaces, and no weapon for the rest of the time he was there. So everyone knew, what he had done. But as we came up on it, the last thing that went through my mind was, again, I'd always drove the rear vehicle, so I always just followed suit. The next thing is this was new for me, and instead of veering left, I thought, as I saw the wires run across the road, I was going to jerk the wheel and take the blast off my side of the truck instead. And so at the last second, I jerked the wheel to the right to try to put the blast on my side of the truck. I thought to myself, if my truck gets hit, a 50-50 chance of it getting hit if we run over the wires correctly. And if we get hit, I have a 50-50 chance of me getting hit as well. And as I veered right, my front left tire still hit the wires across the road, and the IED went off. It was a 3155 round, It blew a hole 9 foot wide, 8 foot deep. Blew my truck about 2.5 foot up into the air, and off down into the ravine. Um, I, I think I kind of might have blacked out for a couple seconds before I came to. As I hear gunfire, I hear people screaming and yelling. I forgot that we drove the interpreter around. So of course he's yelling in Arabic, and so like I said, as I woke up, I feel like I drove us right into enemy territory. But the team chief's yelling to make sure everybody's okay, and he comes out the vehicle and he comes on my side of the truck and whispers something under his breath, says something, and I said, you know what? He's all like, we need to get you out of the vehicle. And I said, well, I feel like my legs are laying on the engine. That's what I felt. I felt like the heat. I felt like for some reason, I felt like the firewall of the vehicle was missing, and somehow my legs were just laying on the engine. It was really hot. And so, of course, they pulled me out of the vehicle, and they took off my flak vest, my Kevlar. They called up a 9-line medevac, which is 9 lines of information for them to be able to tell exactly where you're at to be able to get to you. And so I'm sitting there with my brothers around me, and as I'm sitting there looking up, the medic freezes. And the medic doesn't know what to do, right? They try to move the medics around from vehicle to vehicle to try to not gain such a good relationship with the people that they're with, for the exact reason of what had happened was we were good friends. He looked down, he froze, he didn't know what to do. Luckily, there was a gentleman there that pushed him out of the way and started, yelling for tourniquets and yelling for everything that he needed, to save my life. And so 9 tourniquets, and I'm sitting there in that field, and 30 minutes in, I remember there's some commotion of the gentleman around me, and they called up a 9-line medevac, and 30 minutes in, there still wasn't there, and we weren't, but, 5-10 minutes away from a helicopter ride from either Palo Alto or Camp Anaconda. So that when they called up again, they thought it was a training exercise. As I said, I had 3 days left for us coming home. We were doing right seat rides. The people that were riding with us was people that were taking over, as well as the people on the flat line as well. So again, when they called it up, they thought it was a training exercise. So the second one they called up, they finally did know that it wasn't a training exercise, and they started heading out that way. 55 minutes in, or I guess roughly 52, 53 minutes in, they finally get me into a 998 up armored military Humvee, as the helicopter had still not gotten there. And I remember getting in the back of the Humvee. I remember them pulling off. I remember them hitting the brakes, and I remember them opening up the back doors. And the Black Hawk had landed. It was windy. I remember them pulling me out on the gurney. I remember them dropping me out of the gurney and picking me back up and getting me to the Black Hawk. But when they get me in the Black Hawk, I remember my team chief. Like I said, I'm looking up and I see the guys around me, as well as my team chief, asking if he could ride, along with us. And he asked if there was anybody else injured. And he said, no, he's the only one. He said, well, we don't have any room. And then they lifted off. 55 minutes in, like I said, it was a God blessing that that Black Hawk got there, because I believe that when we lifted off and I had nobody around me, none of my brothers around me, right? I'd bled out for 55 minutes in that field. It collapsed both of my lungs, crushed my femur in 14 pieces. I have the worst scar that I have is from my wrist to my elbow, where they had to do a fasciotomy, where the blast hit my arm so big that it started swelling. They literally had to just cut it open just to keep it from imploding. And so the second that there was nobody around me that I knew, my brothers, I flatlined there in the Black Hawk within minutes. And so again, and they didn't have the equipment in the field to be able to revive me other than CPR. And luckily they got me back breathing, and I went flatline again. And I flatlined 3 times from the time in that field to Camp Anaconda, where they got me in, and they started surgery, right? I remember my captain telling me about the story of where they got in a fight, where they were going to take my leg above the knee. They were going to take me up here at my hip, just because they said that this leg couldn't be saved. And he said, you're not going to take his leg above the knee, you're going to try to save it. And again, godsend thing, I was hit within hours of the flight leaving from Camp Anaconda to Landstuhl, Germany. Flights leave on like Monday, Wednesdays, Saturdays, and the next week it's Tuesday, Thursdays, Sundays, or something like that. And I was lucky enough to have been hit hours before the flight leaving to Landstuhl, Germany. So they kind of, I think they did an emergency surgery right then and there. They kind of sewed me up the best they could, and I got flown off to Landstuhl, Germany. And on my flight from Landstuhl, Germany, or on my flight from there to Landstuhl, Germany, both veterans on both sides of me passed away, both sustaining less injuries than me. But when I get to Landstuhl, Germany, I don't remember it, but I do call my mother and tell her I'm coming home